Admiral Vexthor stood at the command center of his massive warship. His 6 eyes blinked as he stared at the screen. A small ship had entered the territory that the Galactic Hegemony had just claimed. The ship was tiny compared to his vessel. It looked odd and primitive with its boxy shape and simple design. "What is that thing?" Vexthor asked, his voice deep and rumbling. His skin, covered in purple scales, caught the light as he moved closer to the screen. Officer Kraz, his second-in-command, checked the data. "It appears to be from a species called humans, Admiral. They are from a planet called Earth in a nearby system. Our records show they only achieved faster-than-light travel 30 years ago." Vexthor made a sound like laughter. 30 years? They are infants, and they dare to enter our space with such a pathetic vessel? He waved one of his forearms. "Scan it completely. I want to know everything about this human ship." On the small, human ship named Defiance, Lieutenant Commander Frank Rogers felt uneasy. The alien vessel they had discovered was enormous. It was at least 20 times bigger than their scout ship and shaped like a giant arrowhead with glowing purple lines running along its dark hull. "Sir," said Lisa Wright from her communication station. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls as she worked. "They're scanning us, very intense scans. They're looking at everything." Rogers nodded. He was a tall man with short brown hair and serious eyes. At 42 years old, he had been chosen to lead this mission because of his calm nature and good judgment. "Let them look. We have nothing to hide. Our mission is peaceful first contact." Alan Cortez, the science officer, looked worried. He was younger than Rogers, only 35, with dark hair and a thin face. "Sir, these scans are very invasive. They could damage some of our systems if they continue." "Send them our standard greeting package," Rogers ordered. "Let them know we come in peace and are just passing through." Wright sent the message, which included basic information about humans, Earth, and their peaceful intentions. For several minutes, there was no response from the alien ship. Then Wright's console lit up. "Sir, they're responding, but..." Her face went pale. "They're demanding we surrender and prepare to be boarded. They say this sector belongs to something called the Galactic Hegemony, and we are trespassing." Rogers frowned. This wasn't how first contact was supposed to go. "Send the greeting again. Make it clear we're just passing through and mean no harm." "I did, sir," Wright replied. They responded by saying... She paused, reading the message carefully. "They say primitive species have no rights in hegemony space and must submit to inspection and possible quarantine." Before Rogers could respond, the ship shook violently. Everyone grabbed onto something to stay standing. "What was that?" Rogers shouted. "They fired on us," Cortez yelled, checking his instruments. "Some kind of energy weapon. It was just a graze, but our rear shields are down to 40%. Rogers didn't hesitate. "Evasive maneuvers. Ben, get us out of here." Ben Kelly, the pilot, was already moving his hands across the controls. The Defiance turned sharply and accelerated away from the alien vessel. "They're pursuing," Cortez reported, "and charging weapons again." Rogers hit the ship-wide communication button. "All hands, brace for impact and prepare for emergency jump." The ship shook again as another shot hit them. This time the lights flickered and several systems went offline temporarily. "Damage report," Rogers called out. "Hull breach on Deck 3. Sealing now," reported Chief Engineer Gabriela Martinez over the comm. "Engine output reduced to 85%. We can still jump, but we need 2 minutes to recalibrate the drive." "We may not have 2 minutes," Kelly said, his hands moving frantically over the controls as he tried to keep the ship away from the alien vessel. Rogers looked at the tactical display. The alien ship was faster and more maneuverable than it looked. It was gaining on them quickly. "Sir," Cortez said suddenly, "I'm recording unusual energy readings from their weapons. This technology is unlike anything in our database." Rogers nodded. "Keep recording. If we get back to Earth, that data could be crucial." "When we get back," Rogers corrected. "Kelly, take us into that asteroid field. It might slow them down." Kelly looked nervous but guided the ship toward a dense cluster of asteroids. The Defiance was smaller and could navigate the field better than the huge alien warship. "They're firing again," Wright warned. The ship rocked as another blast hit them, this time on the port side. "Port thrusters offline," Kelly reported. I can't maintain this course much longer. Engine recalibration at 60%, Martinez said over the comm. Rogers made a quick decision. Drop our depth charges. Sir? Cortez looked surprised. The mining charges we use for extracting minerals from asteroids, Rogers explained quickly. Drop them all behind us and detonate them when the alien ship is in range. Cortez understood and quickly set to work. The Defiance released a dozen small objects behind it as it weaved through the asteroid field. Alien vessel approaching the radar charges, Cortez reported. Detonating in 3, 2, 1. The space behind them lit up with multiple explosions. The charges weren't designed as weapons, but the combination of the blast and the asteroid fragments created a chaotic field of debris. Direct hit, Cortez announced. They've taken damage to their forward sensors. They're slowing down. Engine recalibration complete, Martinez reported. We can jump now. Do it, Rogers ordered. Kelly activated the faster-than-light drive. The stars around them stretched into lines as the Defiance jumped away from the alien vessel. Once they were safely in FTL, Rogers let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. The bridge was quiet except for the hum of the engines and the beeping of the damaged systems. Everyone okay? Rogers asked, looking around at his crew. They nodded, still processing what had just happened. We were lucky, Cortez said quietly. If they had used their full weapons capability. They didn't expect us to fight back, Rogers replied. They thought we were helpless. Wright looked up from her console. Sir, I've analyzed their communication patterns. They referred to us as primitives and barely spacefaring. I think they severely underestimated us. Rogers nodded slowly. That might be the only advantage we have. We need to get this information back to Earth immediately. The hegemony is clearly expansionist, and Earth needs to prepare. As the Defiance limped home, Rogers stared at the tactical display showing the course back to Earth. They had escaped this time, but he couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of something much bigger. Humanity had hoped for peaceful first contact with alien life, but instead, they found themselves facing an empire that saw them as nothing more than primitives to be conquered. They think we're helpless, Rogers told his crew as they made their desperate journey home. That mistake might be the only thing that saves us. The Defiance limped back to Earth after its encounter with the alien warship. The journey took 12 days instead of the normal 7 because of the damage to the engines. When they finally reached Earth orbit, Lieutenant Commander Frank Rogers felt relief wash over him. The blue and green planet had never looked so beautiful. Earth Defense Command is hailing us, Lisa Wright said from her communication station. Her voice was tired. None of the crew had slept well since their escape from the alien vessel. Put them through, Rogers ordered. General Catherine Boyd's face appeared on the main screen. She was in her late 50s with short gray hair and sharp eyes that seemed to see everything. Lieutenant Commander Rogers, your ship shows significant damage. What happened out there? We need to talk in person, General, Rogers replied. We made contact with an alien species called the Galactic Hegemony. It didn't go well. 4 hours later, Rogers stood in the main conference room at Earth Defense Headquarters. The room was large with a round table in the center. Holographic displays showed the damage to the Defiance and the sensor readings they had managed to collect of the alien ship. General Boyd sat at the head of the table with the other military leaders. Their faces were serious as they watched Rogers' presentation. The alien ship fired on us without proper warning, Rogers explained. They referred to humans as primitives with no rights in their space. The sector they claim includes 3 of our new colony worlds. The room was silent as the implications sank in. Humanity had been exploring space for only 30 years. They had established 7 colony worlds, but their ships were not designed for war. They were explorers and traders, not soldiers. They clearly see us as an inferior species, Alan Cortez added. He had been invited to the meeting to explain the scientific data they had gathered. Their technology is more advanced than ours in many ways, but their approach seemed arrogant. They didn't expect us to escape. General Boyd leaned forward. Did you get good data on their weapons and defenses? Cortez nodded. Yes, and there's something interesting about their shield technology. He pressed a button, and a new image appeared on the display. It showed complex energy patterns surrounding the alien vessel. Their shields operate on a different principle than ours, Cortez explained. They seem to be designed to deflect energy-based attacks and physical projectiles, but there might be a weakness we can exploit. Dr. Samantha Pierce spoke up for the first time. She was the head of the Advanced Weapons Division, a brilliant scientist in her 40s with long brown hair tied back in a ponytail. Those readings match something we've been working on. Everyone turned to look at her. Project Thunderclap, she said, pulling up new schematics on the display. We developed it as a propulsion system that manipulates gravity fields, but based on these readings, I think we could modify it to disrupt their shield technology. How? Asked Admiral Joe Martinez, an older man with a weathered face from years of service. Their shields aren't designed to counteract gravitational distortions, Pierce explained. If we can create a focused gravity wave, we might be able to collapse their shields or at least create a gap for conventional weapons to penetrate. General Hay. Boyd studied the schematics carefully. How quickly can we adapt this technology for defensive purposes? Under normal circumstances, I'd say 6 months, Pierce replied. But given the urgency, 3 months if we redirect all resources to the project. You have 6 weeks, Boyd said firmly. Intelligence suggests the hegemony doesn't consider us a serious threat. That gives us time, but not much. They'll be back, and next time they'll bring more ships. Rogers looked at the display showing the hegemony warship. It was elegant and advanced, while human ships were blocky and practical. What ship would carry this new weapon system? He asked. Admiral Martinez brought up a new image. It showed a ship under construction in the orbital shipyards above Mars. It was larger than any previous human vessel, with a sleek design despite its obvious human origin. The Retribution, Martinez said. Our first true battleship. We began building it 3 years ago as a precaution. It's nearly complete, but we were still developing its main weapon systems. Well, now it has one, General Boyd said. She turned to Dr. Pierce. Modify Project Thunderclap for the Retribution. I want that ship ready in 6 weeks. Yes, General. Pierce nodded. Boyd looked around the table. This stays absolutely secret. The public knows nothing about the Retribution or this new weapon. We don't want the hegemony to learn of our plans through any communication they might intercept. The meeting continued for several more hours as they discussed strategies and preparations. When it finally ended, Rogers found himself walking beside Dr. Pierce toward the research wing. Do you really think this will work? He asked her quietly. Pierce smiled slightly. The physics are sound. The hegemony's technology is more advanced than ours in many ways, but they've been the dominant power for so long that they've become complacent. They don't expect innovation from primitives like us. And if it doesn't work, Rogers pressed, then humanity will need to find another way. Pierce replied. We always do. 5 weeks later, Rogers stood in the observation deck of the Mars shipyard, watching as workers swarmed over the Retribution. The ship was impressive even to his experienced eye. At 800 meters long, it was 4 times the size of the Defiance and built with both defense and offense in mind. Captain Olivia Reeves joined him at the window. She was in her late 40s, with dark skin and confident eyes. She had been chosen to command the Retribution on its first mission. What do you think? She asked Rogers. I think it doesn't look like an alien ship, he replied. And that might be our advantage. The hegemony will underestimate it, just like they underestimated the Defiance. Reeves nodded. Dr. Pierce's team just finished installing the Thunderclap system. We begin testing tomorrow. Will it be ready in time? Rogers asked. It has to be, Reeves said simply. Our scouts report that 6 hegemony battlecruisers are heading toward our colony worlds. We launch in 3 days, ready or not. Rogers looked back at the Retribution. It wasn't as elegant as the hegemony ships, but it represented humanity's determination to survive. The aliens thought humans were primitive and weak. They were about to learn how wrong they were. I've been assigned as your first officer, Rogers told Reeves. She smiled. Good. I want someone who's seen these aliens, up close. Her smile faded. The hegemony thinks we're easy prey. We need to show them that humans are more dangerous than we appear. As they watched, the final sections of the Retribution's outer hull were being attached. Soon, it would be ready to defend Earth and its colonies. The hegemony believed they were dealing with a primitive species that would surrender or be easily conquered. They had no idea what was coming. High Admiral Zexaval stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Dominant Will. He was tall even for a hegemony officer, with gray scales that showed his age and experience. His 6 yellow eyes scanned the tactical display showing the 6 battlecruisers under his command. They were arranged in perfect formation as they approached the human colony worlds. Status report, Zexval ordered. Fleet Tactician Urzoth stepped forward. He was younger than the Admiral, with blue-green scales that still had their youthful shine. All ships report ready, High Admiral. Our sensors detect minimal defenses around the human colonies. They appear to have no significant military presence in this sector. As expected, Zexaval said with satisfaction. The intelligence from our scout ship indicates these humans are newly space-capable with primitive technology. Their escape from our scout was merely luck, not skill. The humans have established 3 colonies in this sector, Urzoth continued, highlighting 3 planets on the display. The largest has approximately 20,000 inhabitants. The others have 5,000 each. All appear to be focused on mining and agriculture. Zexaval nodded. Perfect for resource extraction and labor pools. The Hegemony Council will be pleased with our efficiency. He turned to the communications officer. Prepare to broadcast our standard surrender demands once we reach the first colony. Yes, High Admiral, the officer replied. Urzoth studied the display more carefully. Curious. Our long-range sensors detect no human vessels attempting to evacuate the colonies. Either they are unaware of our approach, or... He paused, considering. Or what? Zexaval asked. Or they are more foolish than we thought, Urzoth concluded. Perhaps they believe they can resist. Zexaval made a sound that was the hegemony equivalent of laughter. With what? The scout ship reported their vessels use primitive metal hulls and basic energy shields. They would not survive one volley from our main weapons. Suddenly, the sensor officer called out, High Admiral, detecting an unknown vessel approaching from the direction of the human home system. Zexaval turned quickly. Show me. The main view screen changed to show a ship approaching at high speed. It was clearly of human design with its angular shape and lack of the elegant curves that characterized advanced galactic vessels. But it was much larger than the scout ship they had encountered earlier. Magnify, Zexaval ordered. The image grew, larger, showing more details of the approaching ship. It was dark gray with minimal markings. Its design was functional rather than beautiful, but there was something imposing about its appearance. That's impossible, Urzoth whispered. Our intelligence indicated the humans have no military vessels of that size. Scan it, Zexaval commanded. The sensor officer worked quickly. High Admiral, scans show it is approximately 800 meters in length, hull composed of reinforced titanium alloys with some unknown composite materials. Energy readings are unusual. Unusual how? Zexaval demanded. The power signature doesn't match any known human technology from our previous encounter, the officer explained. It's much more advanced, but still not at hegemony level. Zexaval considered this information. A single ship, no matter its size, is no threat to 6 hegemony battlecruisers. Perhaps they've come to offer surrender terms to save their colonies. They're hailing us, the communications officer reported. On screen, Zexaval ordered, standing taller to present an imposing figure to the humans. The screen changed to show a human female with dark skin and a stern expression. She wore a uniform with insignia that suggested authority. This is Captain Olivia Reeves of the Earth Defense Force vessel Retribution, she stated clearly. Your fleet is trespassing in Earth-controlled space. The unprovoked attack on our scout ship several weeks ago constitutes an act of war against humanity. Zexaval was surprised by the humans' directness but didn't show it. I am High Admiral Zexaval of the Galactic Hegemony Expansion Fleet. Your species occupies space claimed by the Hegemony. Surrender your colonies and withdraw to your home system, and we may allow you to continue to exist under hegemony oversight. The human captain's expression didn't change. That won't be happening, Admiral. The hegemony has no valid claim to this sector. We discovered and colonized these worlds before any hegemony presence was established here. Zexaval made the hegemony gesture of dismissal with two of his four arms. Your primitive understanding of galactic law is irrelevant. The hegemony has declared this sector under our protection. Your choices are simple: surrender or be destroyed. There is a third option, Captain Reeves replied. You can withdraw your forces and open diplomatic channels for peaceful coexistence. Zexval was growing tired of this exchange. A single vessel cannot stand against 6 battlecruisers, human. Your bravery is noted but misplaced. Perhaps, Reeves acknowledged, but there's something you should know about humans, Admiral. We don't like bullies and we're full of surprises. The transmission ended abruptly. Urzoth looked at Zexaval. They're either very brave or very foolish. It doesn't matter which, Zexaval replied. Target their vessel and prepare to fire. On the bridge of the Retribution, Captain Reeves turned to her first officer. Lieutenant Commander Rogers, status of the Thunderclap system. Frank Rogers checked the readouts at his station. Fully charged and ready, Captain. Dr. Pierce's final calculations show it should disrupt their shield harmonics completely. Reeves nodded. Tactical. Target the lead vessel's propulsion system. Let's show them what humans can do when provoked. Lieutenant Eric Mendez at the tactical station worked quickly. Target locked, Captain. The hegemony vessels are charging. Weapons, reported the sensor officer, a young woman named Kate Daniels. They're about to learn their first lesson about humanity, Reeves said calmly. Fire Thunderclap. The Retribution shuddered slightly as the main weapon activated. Unlike conventional energy weapons, there was no visible beam. Instead, a ripple seemed to move through space itself as the gravitational distortion headed toward the hegemony flagship. On the dominant will, alarms suddenly blared. What's happening? Zexval demanded. Unknown energy pattern approaching, the sensor officer shouted. It's not registering as a weapon. Shields at maximum, Urzoth ordered, but the hegemony shields, designed to deflect energy and matter, did nothing against the fundamental distortion of space around their engines. The gravity wave passed through the shields as if they weren't there and wrapped around the propulsion system. The flagship shuddered violently as metal twisted and components imploded under the gravitational stress. Propulsion system offline, an officer called out. Auxiliary power failing. Weapon systems compromised. Zexval grabbed a support rail to stay standing as the artificial gravity fluctuated. Impossible. How did they... The human vessel is... Hailing us again, the communications officer reported, his voice shaking. On screen, Zexaval ordered. Captain Reeves appeared, looking completely calm. As I said, Admiral, humans are full of surprises. Your flagship is disabled. I suggest you reconsider your options. Before Zexaval could respond, the sensor officer called out again. Hi, Admiral. 5 more human vessels have just arrived. Zexaval watched in disbelief as 5 more ships, similar to the Retribution though slightly smaller, dropped out of faster-than-light travel and surrounded his fleet. For the first time in his long career, High Admiral Zexval felt a sensation he rarely experienced: doubt. 3 weeks after the confrontation between the human fleet and the hegemony forces, the Galactic Council gathered for an emergency session. The council chamber was a massive room with 17 seats arranged in a semicircle. Each seat represented a different spacefaring civilization. For thousands of years, the council had maintained peace among the major galactic powers. Today, the chamber buzzed with nervous energy. The news of a newly spacefaring species defeating hegemony battlecruisers had spread across the galaxy. It was unprecedented. Supreme Counselor Ythlar called the session to order. Ythlar belonged to a species of gaseous beings who needed special environment suits to interact with solid matter. The suit glowed softly as Ythlar spoke. This emergency session will address the recent conflict between the galactic hegemony and the species known as humans, Ithlar announced. Both parties will present their case, after which the Council will deliberate. Ambassador William Nash stepped forward to represent Earth. He was 62 years old with silver hair and a calm, dignified manner. He had been chosen as humanity's first ambassador to the galactic community because of his extensive diplomatic experience on Earth. High Ambassador Kreziel represented the hegemony. His scales were a deep purple, indicating his high rank and noble lineage. He glared at Nash with obvious disdain. "The hegemony will speak first," Ithlar stated. Kreziel moved to the center of the chamber. "Honored Council, the humans have committed acts of aggression against the hegemony. They attacked our peaceful scout ship without provocation. Then they ambushed our response fleet with weapons of unexpected power, disabling the flagship of High Admiral Zexaval." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Kreziel continued. "More concerning is the humans' deception. They concealed their true military capabilities. Such dishonesty proves they cannot be trusted as members of the galactic community." He gestured at Nash. "The humans appeared primitive, with basic technology, yet they somehow developed weapons that can bypass our most advanced shields. This suggests they have been hiding their true technological level, possibly for years." Kreziel finished with a dramatic gesture. "The hegemony demands sanctions against Earth and restrictions on human expansion until they prove they can be trusted." Supreme Counselor Ithlar turned to Nash. "The human representative may now respond." Nash walked calmly to the center of the chamber. He carried himself with quiet confidence that made some council members lean forward with interest. "Honored Council," Nash began. "Humanity regrets that our introduction to the galactic community has been marred by conflict. What Ambassador Kreziel described is not what happened." Nash activated a holographic display showing star charts. "These maps clearly show that the first encounter took place here, in neutral space, not in hegemony territory. Our scout ship, the Defiance, was on a peaceful mission when it was fired upon without warning by a hegemony vessel. The display changed to show recordings from the Defiance. The hegemony demanded our immediate surrender simply because they considered us primitive. When we requested peaceful dialogue, they responded with weapons fire." Nash looked directly at Kreziel. "As for the accusation that we concealed our military capabilities, I find that curious. We concealed nothing. The hegemony made assumptions about our technological capabilities based on the appearance of our vessels. That is not deception on our part, but arrogance on theirs." Several council members nodded slightly at this point. "Furthermore," Nash continued, "the weapon that disabled the hegemony flagship was adapted from mining technology we use in asteroid belts. After the unprovoked attack on our scout ship, we modified existing technology for defense. Humanity has always valued innovation and adaptation. When conventional approaches prove insufficient, we find new solutions." Nash gestured to a woman standing nearby. "Dr. Nicole Garcia, our chief scientist, can explain the principles if the council wishes. The technology operates on principles available in scientific literature throughout the galaxy. We simply applied them differently. Doctor." Garcia stepped forward. She was in her late 40s with streaks of gray in her dark hair. "The gravitational manipulation system uses basic principles of space-time distortion. It's not particularly advanced technology, but it's applied in a way the hegemony hadn't considered." Many council members looked surprised at this explanation. Nash continued. "What concerns humanity most is that the hegemony's actions suggest they view newly spacefaring species as targets for conquest rather than potential allies. Is this the ethos of the galactic community we have entered?" This question caused visible discomfort among several council members. Council Representative Zilithra of the Pleiadian Alliance spoke up. "Ambassador Nash, many species are concerned about this weapon your vessels deployed. It appears to bypass conventional defenses. Such technology could destabilize the balance of power." Nash nodded. "We understand those concerns, Counselor. Earth has no intention of using this technology aggressively. We developed it purely for defense after being attacked. We are prepared to share the scientific principles with the Council as a show of good faith." This offer caused excited whispers among the Council. The hegemony representatives looked alarmed. "Preposterous," Krasil interrupted. "They attack our ships and now offer to share the weapon with everyone? This would create chaos." Nash remained calm. "Not a weapon, Ambassador. Knowledge. There's a difference. Humanity believes in cooperation and the free exchange of ideas. We hope to join the galactic community as equals, not as conquerors or subjects." Supreme Counselor Weithlar raised a glowing appendage for silence. The Council will now question both representatives. For the next 2 hours, the Council members asked detailed questions about the conflict and about human society. Nash answered each question thoughtfully, neither boasting about Earth's victory nor appearing weak. In the gallery above the Council chamber, Captain Reeves watched with Lieutenant Commander Rogers. "Politics," Reeves muttered. "I prefer a straightforward battle." Rogers nodded. "Still, Nash is doing well. The other species are listening. They're realizing the hegemony underestimated us and wondering what else we might be capable of." "That's the point," Reeves replied. "We don't want war. But they need to understand that treating us as primitives would be a serious mistake. As the questioning continued, it became clear that many Council members were impressed by Nash's responses. The humans showed knowledge, adaptability, and a willingness to cooperate, qualities valued in the galactic community. When the session ended, Nash was approached by representatives from several species. Some expressed interest in establishing diplomatic relations with Earth. Others were curious about human culture and technology. The hegemony delegation stood apart, watching with barely concealed anger. Their plan to portray humans as dangerous, primitives had failed. Instead, humanity had gained potential allies among the Council races. Ambassador Nash had achieved exactly what Earth needed: respect. 1 year after the confrontation with the hegemony, Earth had established its first official embassy to the galactic community. The embassy was a massive space station in neutral territory, designed to showcase human architecture and culture, while accommodating representatives from all spacefaring species. Fleet Admiral Catherine Boyd stood on the observation deck of the USS Constitution, looking out at the embassy. The Constitution was Earth's newest flagship, even larger and more advanced than the Retribution. Boyd had been promoted to lead Earth's new defense fleet after the successful stand against the hegemony. Ambassador William Nash joined Boyd at the viewport. "Beautiful, isn't it?" he said, nodding toward the embassy. "A year ago, many species in the galaxy had never heard of humans. Now we're hosting representatives from 17 civilizations." Boyd nodded. "A much better outcome than war." She gestured to a section of the observation deck where various aliens mingled with humans. "The hegemony delegation is notably smaller this year. Their influence has decreased considerably," Nash agreed. "Not just because of us, but because of the alliance we've helped create among the younger species." The coalition of emerging civilizations had formed in the months after humanity's stand against the hegemony. 6 species who had previously been pressured or bullied by older, more powerful civilizations had united under Earth's leadership to ensure mutual protection and fair treatment. Commander Ryan Winters approached with a tall, insect-like alien. "Admiral Boyd, may I introduce Trade Minister Kintho of the Arcturus Confederation? They're interested in our hydroponic farming techniques." Boyd smiled and extended her hand, remembering that the Arcturans considered this a respectful greeting. "Minister, welcome to Earth space." Kintho's antennae twitched with pleasure. "Admiral Boyd, your species has brought remarkable changes to our sector of the galaxy. For centuries, the older civilizations treated us as inferiors because our technology developed differently than theirs. Humans have shown that different approaches can be equally valid." Boyd nodded. "We've found that necessity often leads to innovation. Earth had to develop efficient farming methods because of our limited resources and growing population. Earth's practical approaches to problems like food production, energy conservation, and recycling had proven surprisingly valuable in interstellar relations. While older species had developed elaborate systems requiring rare materials, Humans had perfected efficient methods using minimal resources, a perspective many developing worlds found attractive. Commander Winters oversees several of our agricultural stations, Boyd told the alien minister. I'm sure he can arrange a tour for your delegation. In another corner of the reception, Dr. Nicole Garcia was engaged in animated discussion with scientists from 3 different species. What had begun as a defensive weapon, the Thunderclap gravity system, had evolved into a collaborative research initiative exploring new applications of space-time manipulation. The principles are fairly simple, Garcia explained, showing equations on a small holographic display. The challenge was applying them in a practical way with limited resources. A Pleiadian scientist, whose body glowed with soft blue light, leaned forward to study the equations. Fascinating. Our civilization explored similar theories centuries ago, but abandoned them in favor of other approaches. Perhaps we should reconsider. This was happening throughout the galactic community. Humanity's different perspective was causing many older species to re-examine technologies and approaches they had dismissed long ago. Meanwhile, Ambassador Nash was approached by Supreme Counselor Withlar. The gaseous entity's environment suit pulsed with changing colors as they spoke. Your species continues to surprise us, Ambassador, Ithlar commented. Many expected humans to press your military advantage after the hegemony incident. Instead, you've focused on diplomacy and trade. That was always our intention, Nash replied. Humanity has had enough of war in our history. We developed defenses because we had to, but our preference has always been cooperation. Yet you now lead a coalition that effectively counterbalances powers that have dominated for millennia, Ithlar observed. Nash gave a small shrug. We simply recognize that diversity of perspective has value. The older civilizations have much to teach us, but perhaps they've forgotten what it's like to be the underdog, to have to innovate rather than rely on established advantages. Across the room, Captain Olivia Reeves, now commanding the newly commissioned Constitution, raised a glass and a toast with captains from the coalition species. Their ships were currently docked together in a joint training exercise. 2 unexpected friendships, she offered. And to humans, added Captain Zixara of the Centauri Defense Force, who taught the galaxy that appearances can be deceiving. Reeves smiled, remembering the shock on the hegemony admiral's face when the Retribution had disabled his flagship. The memory still gave her satisfaction. Lieutenant Commander Rogers, now promoted to commander, joined them. The hegemony representative is watching us, he said quietly. Reeves glanced over to see a hegemony official observing their group with obvious discomfort. Let them watch. Every time they see us working together with species they tried to dominate, it reminds them of their mistake. That mistake being? Asked Zixara. Judging by appearances, Reeves replied, assuming that because our ships looked different, our technology was inferior. Rogers nodded. Humans have always been good at adapting existing tools for new purposes. The hegemony couldn't imagine that we'd find a way to use simple gravity, manipulation to bypass their advanced shields. The greatest error in warfare, Zixara said wisely, is underestimating your opponent. As the reception continued, Boyd and Nash stepped away for a private conversation. The hegemony is rebuilding its fleet, Boyd told Nash quietly. Our intelligence suggests they haven't given up their expansionist goals. Nash didn't look concerned. But they won't move against us or our allies anytime soon. They learned an expensive lesson, and if they forget that lesson, Boyd asked, then we'll remind them, Nash replied calmly. But I suspect the other council races will help keep them in check now. The balance of power has shifted. They looked out the viewport again. The Constitution floated beside the embassy station. Beyond them, Earth was visible as a small blue dot in the distance. Just a year earlier, humanity had been seen as newcomers to the galactic stage, primitive and naive. Now they were respected, even admired by many species. They still don't fully understand us, Boyd noted. Good, Nash replied with a slight smile. A little mystery keeps things interesting. Besides, humanity is still discovering what we're capable of. Out here among the stars, we're writing our own story. Boyd nodded. watching as a new class of human vessel moved into position beside the station, its design a unique hybrid of human practicality and alien aesthetics, representing the beginning of true cultural exchange. And it's just getting started, she said. As stars shone in the endless black of space, humanity continued its unexpected rise in the galactic community, not through conquest or intimidation, but through innovation, adaptation, and the willingness to see problems from a different angle. It was a uniquely human approach, and it was changing the galaxy in ways no one, not even humans themselves, could have predicted.